All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of On Cycle. Today, we decided we were going to go back and maybe rehash some of the stuff from last year because we really didn't take time to talk about it, right? We looked at DCI.
And we didn't have the power of hindsight that we do now.
That's also very true, yeah. So today, we're going to look at DCI All Age and kind of what it was last year and all the new integration and take a look at what we're looking forward to moving into the next year, into 2025.
Right.
So
sort of a rehash of sorts of our DCI versus DCA, right?
Yeah.
But also trying new ground, right? So if you haven't seen that one, we went into much more detail about the differences than we are now. So you might want to go back and watch that one for a little bit of context. But we'll do a little bit of recap here, and then, like you kind of said, like take a look at like how the integration went year one.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, and like I said, if you haven't go back. It's like our second episode on our episodes. I think it's episode 2.
I mean, we wanted to have this kind of be a podcast of like two guys from DCA, and we were like, no one's gonna know what that is. We got to tell them what it is.
Yeah. So those of you maybe who are new or maybe just finding the podcast for the first time and don't know what DCA was, it is what now is DCI All Age, right?
Yep.
DCI All Age, just a collection of old DCA cores and some new ones now. That are competing in the same drum corps form, really, that DCI has, but we're an all-age activity. We're primarily a weekend activity. We only practice and perform on the weekends. So it's accessible to pretty much anybody of all ages. 14, 16, 14, whatever we are now.
Yeah, I think our low end is 14.
I think so, yeah.
Which is usually the youngest that we have in the core.
I mean, if you're doing
with
14.
few exceptions.
Yeah.
But as you know, obviously with DCI All Age, and at 21, you have people in their late 20s or early 40s still, or even 50s sometimes.
Yeah. There's a couple of guys I know at cabs that are in their 50s.
Yeah,
you know?
right. Depending on the core, right? You get people in their 50s or even 60s sometimes.
Like
right?
I know Josh is in his 39th consecutive year marching right now.
Insanity.
It's crazy. Yeah. Shout out to you, Josh.
13 more years than I've been alive.
Yeah, exactly.
God.
It's like I was 3 when he started marching, and he's still going.
Yeah,
and I'm old.
But like that, right? That's one of the coolest things about DCI All Age, right? Is like it only really ends when you want it to end, right? When life gets too much in the way, right? I feel like so many of us, I know I felt that, right? And you pass your age out and you're like, I'm still good to do this. I'm still, I'm still in good shape. I'm still getting better each year.
Yeah.
So it gives you the space to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I mean, I'm in my 9th year of drum corps overall. You're in what, 18?
Yeah, I think this is my 18th marching season.
Never would be a thing. I think when someone hits 7 years, that's like a worldwide event in DCI.
Right. And most of the time in DCI, if you had 7 years, you probably did like Blue Devils C.
Yeah,
you probably did Blue Devils
somewhere.
B, and then you were into Blue Devils after that too. Or some of them, maybe an open class core, like you did Jersey Surf at 14 or something like that, and you kept going. And it's an oddity, it's not really common.
Oh yeah.
In the all age activity, there's lots of us that have 10 plus years.
Oh,
and that's a pretty, I won't say common, but I would say there's probably 4 or 5% of people.
A good amount, just lifers basically.
Yeah, exactly, or lifers that are still doing activity. So if if you're in your new foray into DCI All Age, Robbie and I, we marched with the Reading. We marched with the Reading Buccaneers. We were DCI All Age champions last year for the first time, which was pretty neat, awesome. And we went to Lucas Oil Stadium. We did all that stuff. So
like a little bit of context, right? Like DCA used to be its own completely separated circuit.
Correct.
Right, we pretty much would have no shows, except for maybe the last few years. Pretty much no shows with any other DCI cores. Right, it would just be all DCA.
Right,
and like maybe some like DCI Europe groups or something that were not really competitive.
The DCI Europe, and occasionally back in the day with DCI Japan would come over. We had one group.
Yeah, right.
Yokohama and Spars would come over every now and again.
But most of the time it was confined to us. We'd have our own finals. They were usually like Rochester. We had them in Williams for a few years, right? But
Scranton, there was a couple of years.
I think
we're Annapolis, Maryland was one for 2 years.
Right, yeah. So we moved around. Whereas this year, finally, DCA was kind of getting smaller and smaller, while DCI was innovating, keeping with the times. So the DCA directors, sort of came together, had talks with DCI, and fully incorporated last year.
Yeah,
I think we're still technically in like the probationary period where basically for 2 years we could DCA if all the core directors decided we could pull out technically after next year and still remain independent. But between you and me, I highly doubt that's going to happen.
Not even close. Yeah,
never going to happen.
So if you don't know, most drum corps are 501c3s or not-for-profit organizations. And with that, if there's no activity or anything within 2 years, they basically kind of can cease to exist.
Yeah.
And since DCA has pulled back and doesn't, not that they don't exist, they still technically exist on paper. We just haven't had any kind of activities. And then that's that 2-year grace period where we're going to let DCI kind of absorb us, see how things play out, because
it's a ripcord in case of emergency. But
that's exactly what it was. I mean, DCA was strong for 65 years. You know, we're older technically than DCI. So you know, it was a good thing. But with, you know, one of the things that we wanted to talk about in this episode was the pros and the cons of us moving from
right now that we've been in there for a year and we've gotten to have a full season there. You know, what were the changes? What are we looking forward to?
You know, there's a lot of things that we heard going into that season. I remember in the end of 2023, midway through 2023, the season was probably, maybe like May, June sometime, when they came to us and said, hey, guys, this is what's going on with DCA, right?
Here's what's going to happen
next year. This is what's going to happen. And everybody was in, oh my God, what are we going to do? Are they going to keep the same rules? Are we going to grow in numbers? Are we going to have finals over the soil? Like, what's going on? What's going to happen? And so kind of like a recap of this is kind of what the changes were. Some of you may have just saw us for the first time and go, holy cow, like we didn't know an all-age activity was so big and so strong and had so many groups and all those other things too. So we were alive and strong over here for a long time on the East Coast. And, you know, going to Indianapolis last year and having our finals with the DCI finals was a huge, you know, success for us personally, I think, for the all-age activity personally.
So I think, like the big first thing, I think most noticeable from the offset last year, right? Or onset, whichever one it is. Off cycle, on cycle.
Yeah.
Right.
Potato.
Biggest thing from the onset, I think, was just the DCI name just has weight to it.
So much weight. Yeah.
Right. You know, we showed up in last year. It helps that, you know, whenever you have a strong show, you tend to have a bigger influx. But I think it is very much in part to just having the DCI title now. Mm-hmm. It makes people who have never heard of the group before go, oh, this is like a real drum corps. You know, it's a real group that rehearses well and like does cool shows and does hard shows, right? And I think that happened with a lot of DCI groups. They saw, you know, or formerly DCA groups, is having that DCI label on there gets so many more eyes. We had such a huge influx of people marching or just, you know, interested in the core because of that new title and, you know, the sort of legitimacy.
I think DCA had a stigma, right, of being an alumni organization.
And it's not to say that we didn't earn that stigma sometimes over the years.
Listen, here's the thing, like,
sometimes
with the way that we function as an organization, the activity and how things work, we are always going to be probably 10 to 15 years behind what DCI is innovating, right? Because with the cost and everything else, we're not as financially beneficial, like all those other things too. We don't do the same things. We don't draw the same kids, the same crowds, the same instructors. We're always going to be a little bit behind, right? Yeah. That doesn't mean we're bad. We're just, if you want to see drum corps from 2015, come see an all age activity, because it's kind of where things are right now. We're about 10 years behind.
Tend to lag behind with the trend.
So I think
I'm curious if that will change a little bit now that we're under the umbrella of DCI. I think that it would take like 5 or so years to figure out if that'll happen.
Well, I think just like with young people or old people finding out that we exist and we're not just an alumni organization, right?
That was the thing I was going to say, is I think a lot of people thought the DCA and Alumni Corps were synonymous.
Yes,
which sometimes they were very similar.
Here's the thing, like DCI,
depending on the core.
DCA groups have alumni attached to them. Hawthorne Caballeros alumni.
Exactly, yeah. Like we had our own alumni group.
We have our own alumni.
The alumni group.
We're not like a DCI where they have these 1 year off alumni that do things. Like we have annual competing and participating alumni organizations that are separate from what we are, but they're attached. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the Crossman alumni from last year. They're not a functional group all year round, every year round.
They're not doing anything this year, as far as I know, right?
Exactly.
They're not.
One of the cool things, you know, just a side note, like Troopers Legacy Corps, which was out there 3 years ago now, 2 years ago now, they are their own sound sport group now.
That's cool.
Yeah, so super neat. Awesome. Yeah, they kind of formed their own sound sport group, and so they're going to be back out at finals again this year, just as a different group, as a different entity, right? Which is really, really neat. So, which is one of the things that I thought Sound Sport was I hoped Sound Sport would kind of turn into for some of those groups. I think Rhythm and Blue is very much like that for the Bluecoats.
Yeah.
Right. They're a Sound Sport group that have a lot of Bluecoats alumni in them, and they're more regional and it's more, and that kind of thing. So we're kind of that way in a sense. We are a all age activity that's kind of in between Sound Sport and DCI as a whole, right? And again, so like you were saying before, getting the stigma of we're not an alumni group, we are competitive, we are very, they're well-designed shows. We have a lot of people that work for this stuff.
Yeah, and like as much as we said, the general delay of trends, we're still, I think, a core that is obviously trying to be modern. Design, right?
I think every core is trying to do the next thing because we're competitive activity.
Yeah, right.
Right. So
we're not stuck in the, it's not, we're not some kind of stick in the mud, which again, like I would not be surprised if a lot of people had that stigma, right? Of like, it's a bunch of older people. They probably want to do older style of drum corps, which I do want to say some groups do still do that. And I do appreciate that those still exist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I like having a variety.
Yeah. And they do well at it.
Right. But it's not necessarily a blanket statement that can apply to all of the all age groups, right?
Yeah, so I think one of the things once DCI started promoting us, which we said this a second ago, like having the umbrella of DCI and their organization and their staff. I mean, they have a full-time staff that work of 30 or some people that work for them.
Just like not to beat the dead horse, I guess, but like DCA as an organization, I think was very. The organizational level of it, not on quarter level, but the DCA itself tended to be a little behind the times in terms of modernity and online presence.
Yeah, well, listen, it's like everything else, right? These organizations, our organizations, drum corps in general, are all run by people who are highly dedicated to the activity and love what we do, right?
Yep.
When you have limited funds, when you have limited people, when you're just limited by anything, it becomes more and more difficult for the same one or two people to keep everything running all the time.
Yeah.
Right? And I think DCA was just kind of experiencing that, where they had some really great, very highly focused people, but they were the only people left kind of doing most of the work. And they were, they're in their 60s or their 50s and 60s years old, and they're like, we have regular lives like everybody else. How do we continue it running, right? So going to DCI was the greatest thing that they could have ever done, and then that was John Carr and his team, like putting all that together and going, "Hey,
definitely
look,
the right move.
Look here, we're going to go over here now, and we're going to let DCI's organization handle things
the structural things they have in place,
publicity, schools, what do they call it? Stuff like sites, and all that stuff. Like we're traveling and putting together some of the shows, and that's so much logistics and so much time and energy that people the DCI's people paid to do those things. Right.
Yeah.
There's volunteers too, but there's a lot of paid people to do that stuff. So it's really done wonders for us in the all age activity because things that we saw last year, huge uptick in membership numbers.
Yep.
Yeah. And
just general interest.
Yeah. And going into this season too, that continued to trend. That trend continued into 2025. Huge upticks in numbers. Right.
Yeah.
So we have that. Other positives that went into it too. Like I said, marketing for us. DCI people, young people, and everybody else, we follow DCI because it's the latest and greatest, right? It's the best of the best that's out there. It's like the NFL really of our activity.
Marching music's major league.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, exactly. So people watch it for that. Yeah. So us being associated with that just draws attention to us. So it's nothing but positive things from that regard.
Oh yeah, in terms of just getting eyes on us, which is like one of the biggest things you can do to keep the activity alive. Yeah. Universally. I remember it was great seeing DCI shared a lot of us. They did it last year, and they did a lot in 23 to like prime us joining.
Yeah.
It was awesome to see that, right? To see like DCI post. It was also always really cool to see other drum corps, other world-class corps post about us.
Yeah.
We got a post once, like it was Bluecoats shared a clip of our show and was like, basically like, hey, check these guys out.
Yeah.
Pretty cool what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, the Bluecoats sharing a clip from our show and advertising us is the single greatest piece of marketing we can ever ask for.
We couldn't have paid
exactly
for any of that. It wouldn't be possible. Like we don't have, like, who are we going to pay, to do that kind of,
right. That's just the community, right? That's just the Bluecoats social media team, and the social media teams of other corps. you know, having that sense of community and being like, you know,
yeah,
it's not they're gonna be your infant members.
We're not beating them anytime soon.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
but it's that sense of community that it was not only super helpful, but it was also really like kind of heartfelt. I was like, oh, like super cool, right? Just great to see that, like, to some degree, right? Other groups care about this and are excited about, you know, our groups joining them.
I will say some of the other positive things that have come out of it, and I think some things that I didn't think about. Obviously, our activities it's a little cheaper. You know, than going on tour, and it opens up some competitiveness to members of young people that maybe can't get out to DCI because they either can't afford it, they can't do the travel, or maybe they have the love for the activity and they're not quite skilled enough to go and do that. So some of the best part of last year for me personally was being able to perform at Lucas Oil Stadium. Right, which I think is like it's like incredible. A mini dream. It's like when you're a kid and you like pretend like you're hitting a home run when you're playing baseball or catching the winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. Like,
I mean, it's the place you see Mecca. Every core video from,
and Grand Nationals too. You know, Grand Nationals come out of that too. So if you're not part of a high school, which is just really that's just luck of the draw where your parents live. You know, if you're not part of that high school, then you're never going to experience that. So here's an activity, here's a portion of the activity that DCI is going to allow us to come in and have this experience that is like no other experience. Perform in front of thousands of people, and in a stadium that was designed and built for us. You know, along with obviously the professional NFL team that's there, but. You know, whoever those guys are, the Colt, whatever, Peyton Manning. But anyway, like that experience is something that's great that I don't think I thought about from a DCI All Age activity. If you're out there and you trying to figure out what you're doing, it's a great place to prime yourself to go to those activities.
Right. I think a lot of people, obviously, lots of people want to march DCI.
Yeah.
Lots of people have the good idea, especially if their high school program isn't the strongest. Yeah. Like if they're not like in a national championship level high school.
Right.
A lot of people have the idea of being like, all right, well, I got 3 or 4 years in me. Let's march at an open class corps for 1 or 2 years, and then I'll get the experience, and I'll be able to join a top 12 or I hope that we're more people are realizing that DCI All Age is another avenue for that, right?
Absolutely.
It's a little less commitment, right? We don't go on a mini tour like Open Class does or like the smaller World Class groups do. You said it's a little less tuition, right? But at the end of the day, you still get to perform in Lucas Oil.
Yeah,
right.
Super cool,
and you get to be a part of a competitive group, right?
Yeah, and even the depending on how high you place, the Open Class cores don't even get to do that. Right?
Yeah, right.
So like, it's a pretty great experience and a pretty great thing, and it's all because DCI allowed us to do that. And taking the time to again promote us and do all those things has done things like this year we're going to see 3 brand new DCI All Age groups. One coming out of the grave, and back. Minnesota Brass.
Yeah,
super excited.
I'm so excited for them.
So pumped for them to come back. Northern Lights, which is a sound sport group that's going to come back in and now do that. And oh my God, I'm blanking on the third one. Oh my God,
feeling better than I do.
Yeah, I'll drop a link in the comments down there for you guys.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
But
Northern Lights, and there's a mid-range one. Northern Lights.
Southern Lights.
Southern Nights, not enough. Whoever they are. There's a third group coming into.
Yeah, right. I mean, any new drum corps starting up and joining, I'm always excited for.
We haven't had a new corps in DCA or DCI All Age in probably 10 years. Right.
Yeah, I know.
And in 1 year, we have 3 brand new corps.
Yeah.
Right. And 2 brand new ones and a resurgence of another one. Right.
Yeah. Right. Because the previous. I feel like a lot of groups previously were like, all right, well, if I want to start up a new group or join in, like what's pretty much only option is sound sport.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't imagine starting off and being open class. That would take so much upfront, logistical work.
Oh my God, it would be insane.
Yeah. Right.
It's hard.
But now, it's we offer one that's like, somewhere kind of between those two.
Absolutely.
Right. More stepping stones to build towards something bigger.
Absolutely.
Right. Or hopefully a lot of corps end up in DCI All Age, and like a lot of us lifers that have been here are like, actually, this is kind of a nice balance.
Yeah, it's a great balance. Right. It's a great balance. Like, you said, this is my 18th year marching. This is my 27th, 28th year being around the activity. So about 10 years in there where I didn't perform. And the great thing is that I took time off and then I came back. You know,
yeah, right.
It doesn't like it just disappeared.
It doesn't
like
feel
my
like there's
dreams
nearly
were
as much
over. You know,
it doesn't feel like there's nearly as much of a ticking clock, right?
Yeah, which it really isn't. You know, which is great about DCI All Age.
Like, yeah, we always say, anytime we got younger people that march, and they march a few years maybe, and they're like, oh, I'm thinking about DCI, you know, but I don't know. We're always like, dude, go do it.
Yeah.
Go do DCI, right? Yeah. Go do world class, because we will still be here.
We'll be here when you get back. Yep.
Right? The clock's not running out on your all age time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's crazy. And, you know, it's a really fun thing. Like, obviously, like, for those of you who don't know, maybe like this is my 4th season now marching with my son, you know, which is a really cool thing. And I was talking to Trevor about this weekend. Trevor's a Crossman alum from back in the day, and then marched Reading for.
He was a soloist for all 4 years that he was here.
Yeah, like he's an incredible musician and player, but he's also just a regular guy who does his own thing. He's got young kids now.
Yeah, exactly. And took a few years off to have kids.
Yeah, him and I were talking about. He's like, I wasn't planning, because he's marching this year with us. He was like, I wasn't planning on coming back until my kids were old enough to march. You know, and that's crazy to think about, because you don't think about that in the DCI world. You don't go, oh, I'll do this this year so that in 20 years when I have kids and I can go back and march, I can come back and march DCI. You can't do that. Now you can, right?
Yeah, right.
Now there's an experience that will exist that you have the opportunity for those things. And I do think that had DCI not taken us, DCA would not have been long for this world, right? There would have had to been, there had to have been something that would have had to have changed. Yeah. You know, it had to have been something that would have changed to kind of get us there, right? So, more positives, you know, from last season. Finals was a huge positive, I think, for everybody. We didn't have prelims last year. It was a little bit of a negative, because we're just like DCI. We don't have a quarterfinals, but we always had a prelims and we had a finals. Last year we didn't have a prelims. But what DCI did for us, and again, this is going around the DCI supporting us, is they gave us a sound check the morning of prelims. Right.
Yeah, that kind of was basically a prelims run.
Yeah,
it wasn't scored, but it was.
Nobody was in the stadium. It wasn't scored. It wasn't adjudicated, because none of these cores and most of these people there had never dealt with the size of the stadium before. What is it going to sound like? What is it going to?
Never had a dome show before.
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. We're outside all the time.
Yeah,
you know, we're not
performing any domes. Yeah,
exactly.
The closest we get is what the Mount Olive show that has like a big
big overhang. Yeah.
On it. That's the best that we got.
Yeah, exactly. So DCI was gracious enough to give 12 organizations all of this time. First thing in the morning. It was early in the morning, you know, and we kind of
brutal.
Yeah, it was a little brutal for us, but man,
it was an opportunity, right? Yeah.
What a great opportunity. And for nothing else, like, honestly, I use that opportunity to take pictures, you know, like walk in, take a picture of myself, you know, wave. And I got a bunch of pictures of you and I and Steven and I, like, and all the dumb stuff like that.
Our props.
We had the cakes.
Yeah, we had
the cakes last year.
Cake duty.
So like to do those things, and then the following day, which was also finals day for those of you who don't know, DCI All Age performs the morning of finals with DCI World.
We'll be doing that again this year. So.
We're going to be doing that again this year.
So if you're going to be seeing DCI finals, stop in a little early.
Hop on in, you know.
The tickets are like $50 for center.
Yeah, for dead center 50, you can hop in for $50.
Lucas Oil, cool shows, and then take a break, go get some lunch, catch some lots.
Yeah.
See finals.
Yeah. A lot of people did it last year. They said I had a really great experience, and a lot of really great reviews from people who had never seen us before, because they were like, oh, this is interesting. You know, we're already here. We might as well just pay to hop in, right?
Yeah, exactly. See a little more drum corps.
Yeah, so those were all positives from last year. I will say, because I do believe in talking about the reality of certain things, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the downfall of moving over to the activity, as I'll say, there's two big ones. One, the cost for us went up significantly. Right, because we've been traditionally regional, mostly East Coast. All the cores exist on the East Coast for the most part. The primary cores exist on the East Coast, and we have some smatterings here and there. So travel was not nearly as expensive. Now we have to drive to Indianapolis, huge travel expense. So all the cores they basically doubled in cost. You know, which was
basically, you
know, for people like you and I have been doing this activity for a really long time. You know, we come to expect a certain output of money that we need to, you know, produce for the season. To double that was like, oof. I mean, it was a necessity. It had to happen.
Yeah, we were all like, you know,
and I think everybody just bit the bullet. And went,
honestly, part of me was like, I'm just glad I wasn't more. Right,
right, exactly. You know, it's probably a third of the cost of DCI right now. You know, because our tuition's $2,000, I think. I know most of the all age.
Like when I joined, it was $1,000. It only crept up to 1,200.
When I joined, it was 300.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's crazy.
Right, but so yeah, it crept up to 1,200 by the last couple of seasons.
22, 23 was 1,200.
Yeah, right.
And
then $2,000.
And $2,000 last year, which is what it was again this year. So I think most of the cores are staying at that $2,000 mark. I think that's the number that all the all age activity cores are kind of hovering around, that or less, depending on where it is.
Can't imagine that.
There's an all age core down in Pittsburgh that still uses G horns, and their tuition's $270.
That rules.
$270, and you're gonna get a chance to play. Oh, it's Steel City. That's the third group.
Steel City, yes. Oh my God,
how did I forget about them? Yeah, sorry, Ben.
That rules.
Yeah, so like, there's a group that's down there that's still trying to build like from scratch. They're an old historic organization that's trying to resurface again and do those things. So
cool name for a core too.
Yeah, Steel City. It's right out of Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, they're great. I got a chance to listen to their show already. Like, he sent me over all the MIDI files. Yeah, because I know the core director. It's really fun. Yeah. So they're going to be great. I can't wait to see them this year, wherever they're going to be. I can't exactly. I think they're coming to our indoor show, to our the music in the mountains. Yeah, I think they're coming to that.
In the rolling mountains of Reading, Pennsylvania.
But anyway, so again, more resurgence. So that's a little bit of a downside.
Yeah, right. That was a cost that it was a negative that all of us were ready to eat.
Yeah, we were just okay.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
right.
It's fine.
I don't really see any other way, but
there was no other way of doing it, right?
Exactly.
So every core had to do it that way.
Yep.
Losing prelims, that sucked. Not having 2 shows at finals. And then kind of go along with the same losing a show at finals is that we lost 3 weeks of our season, because we end now with DCI. We didn't end like that before, for those of you who don't know.
We would go till Labor Day.
Right.
And usually be, DCI finals was like the second weekend of August, basically. Yep. And we would go till Labor Day. We'd have 3 more weeks.
Yeah, which is 3 shows for us, because those are a competitive season. 3, so we lost 3 shows. And then last year, not only did we lose 3 shows, we lost 4, because we also lost prelims at finals. So that was a little tough, and we lose time too. Like, we don't get outside and start practicing as early as some of the DCI goes, and we don't go on tour.
Yeah.
So
actually, if anything, we actually get outside and start learning drill earlier than them.
That's probably
because
true.
We have to, because
right.
We can't wait to learn all our drill until May.
Yeah, we don't get 30 days of murder camp, to take care of us.
Exactly.
To learn everything. So there's there's some downsides to that, but all of those downsides don't equate to any. They're not even comparable. Like, the upsides are so much better than any of the downsides that we're going to be there. And I think now, talking about downsides, like moving into the 2025 season, some of the downsides kind of got corrected a little bit.
Yeah, you talked about losing prelims, right? Because we had the sound check thing. This year, they're going to do. It's not technically prelims, but it's basically, right?
It's another show.
It's basically, it's another show right before finals, right?
Yes.
So this year, this is one of the things that they're changing. I think we'll have to see, but I think it's a change I'm excited for.
Yeah.
It's one that I think is going to be good, right? So now, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but right now the structure of this is going to be, right? We're basically going to have it's almost like DCI All Age division finals.
That's correct. That's what it's called.
On prelims night, right?
Yes.
So DCI All Age is broken up into, was it 3 divisions?
3 divisions, yeah.
3 divisions based on size.
A, Open, and World.
Yeah, right. A, Open, and World. Gonna have basically division finals prelims, where it's essentially a contained circuit, right? A, Open, and World, all just competing within the respective divisions.
Correct.
Everyone, and then you get to crown some winners, right? A winner of A class, and Open class, and World class. And have that sort of pre-championships, championships. And then finals morning, that's when it's basically just all, I think all open.
Well, it's all right now, right? But it's the top 12 scoring shows, right?
Yeah.
I think there's only 12 people in competition right now.
I think so.
At finals. So it is technically all, but with the new 3 that are coming out this year, moving into the 2026 season, there will be 3 people that don't make finals.
Yeah, right. We'll actually have a cutoff point, which is kind of a bummer if you don't get to perform at finals, but it's also, I think, the sign of a healthy drum corps competition, right?
Yeah.
This should be the same thing with making cuts in a drum corps. We kind of had to deal with that for the first time, last year and this year, of we have to make actual cuts. But I'm always it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
It's a healthy thing to be we gotta really, step it up if we want to make finals night, right?
Yeah, there's competition there. There's, like we say it all the time, like
it's a healthy bit of pressure.
Yeah, the 12th place organization, right? What are you fighting for if not for the next level?
Yeah.
Right. It's good. It's like I said, it's healthy competition. So that's a nice thing going into 2025. That's a good improvement.
Yeah, it's a cool change that I like to see.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see what they're going to do. In the realm of curiosity of like we're still trying to figure this whole thing out.
You're right. The structure might change next year.
I'm very curious to see how it falls. Right. Are any of the open class cores going to come up and pass some of the world-class cores? Because basically what you're asking is the same thing that DCI is doing. Like you have open class and you have world-class organizations, right?
Yeah.
Do you expect any of the open class cores to beat the world-class cores?
Yeah.
I think there's some argument for people like Spartans or maybe the Battalion who were like first and second place last year. Battalion second place last year, whatever they were. But better open class organizations that are extremely talented and really good and they're very competitive and they do good shows, they do place higher or score higher
some of the world class ones,
of the world class ones, right? So whoever the winner is from open class, right, gets invited to come and be part of the world class division for I think prelims, and then they get to be slotted in there. So it's kind of the same.
It's a cool experience.
It's kind of the same thing. And
well,
can they make it?
Like, hey, do you like? It's like for those top performing groups, do you want to, next year maybe try and or sometime in the future, trying to step up if you wanted to.
I mean, it's like seeing Blue Devils B or SCVC or SCV cadets, coming in and taking 17th overall, and pushing groups like.
Oh, that's semis.
You're making exactly like. There's been a couple of times in there where those groups have come up and they've won open class and they've done that. So will that happen with us? Will there be a competitive open class group that probably the winner of open class, whoever that may be, will they jump up over some of the world class
next year?
Right? Will they be competitive against whoever wins world class?
Yeah.
Like what it is. So it's kind of interesting. I'm very curious to see how the judging is concerned and what they're looking at and to see how that kind of plays out. Yeah. It's going to be fun.
Here's a positive that we didn't think of beforehand, but you just mentioned judging. DCA had its own suite of judges. Yeah. DCI had their own suite of judges. And in previous seasons, for context, we performed at Allentown at DCI East on, I think, Saturday morning in 22 and 23.
Yeah, we did. Friday, there was a Friday and Saturday for the last 4 or 5 years. There's been a DCI or DCA group. There's usually 2 on Friday and 2 on Saturday. They kind of opened the show for DCI East.
And that we got to basically did judge an exhibition and get a little taste of the judges. But this year, I think they basically brought in any of the DCA judges that wanted to make the switch and train them on educate. But we got basically access to a whole new suite of judges. That offered us some new perspective and in some cases gave us some really all-time great feedback on our shows.
Yes.
We got a brass tape from I forget where her last name is, but her first name is Beth.
Oh, I remember.
A brass judge in DCI. And I listened to it and I was like, including my tour with Blue Knights, I'm like, this is the best brass tape I've ever heard. Yeah. Right. In terms of just super high quality feedback on your show.
How can we improve? What can we do? Because we didn't get a lot of that from the DCI or DCA judges. It was very, to use the word more specific, it was very judgy. And, not a lot of, hey, this is why I'm putting you where I'm putting you. This is what I see before. This is what I see you need to improve on. Like, these are some things you can work towards. I remember that tape too. I think it was Mike or Paul let us listen to that tape as a whole group.
Yeah, they share in the Discord, and we were like, oh, this is awesome.
This is really good. Yeah, and I think so too. I think
really
it was probably
high quality stuff.
One of the best tapes I had ever heard.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that. That's a huge positive and uptick. I was a little scared of it. I remember when I heard that too. I was like, oh no,
they're gonna tear us a new one.
We're gonna die.
Which part of me also, I don't know. Honestly, part of me was kind of like, bring it.
Yeah, I hope you do.
Part of me, we talked about a healthy amount of competition. I am always very wary of being complacent where we are in DCI All Age, right?
Yeah.
Our circuit. I never want to be like, oh, well, we're doing very well competitively. So
what do we do? Yeah, why change? Why do anything right?
I almost want them to be like, I'm going to tear us a new one. I'm going to get an 80 at finals. And I really want to just right? part of me really wanted that, because when you get brutally judged, that's how you know, like, okay, like that's what lights the fire under your butt a little bit to get you to know, kick it up a notch.
Yeah. And obviously, to be fair too, we're judged on the same sheets, but we're not judged against DCI.
Not on the same scale.
Yeah, so we're not judging the same scale yet. Right. We're not saying
same criteria, but different levels, right?
We won last year with a 95 something or whatever it was. Like, obviously, if we're not comparing ourselves.
Yeah, to we were not middle of top 12 quality. Right?
No, not at all. We wouldn't have made finals. We wouldn't have been close. You know, so. That's not what it is, but it's a nice thing to kind of see all that stuff too. And there's a lot of
funny if they gave us one of those, just one, like, how do we do actually against DCI? Just to see. I'd be curious just to know, get humbled a little bit, maybe.
27th place, something like that. You know, I don't know.
I think we can make it in 26th.
we would be beat up pretty good. But
I would like that though. I mean,
I mean, it's fun. Look, it's like, you know, comparing a little league team to the World Series team. Like, it's not
exactly.
They're not comparable.
There's a game. Delaware, my alma mater, that they just like drive out to Penn State and play a game against Penn State, and it's just a massacre every time. But I'm sure the Delaware people are like, yeah, we get to play at Beaver Stadium. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah,
they're just happy to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, this is great, man. There's a lot of people in the stands. It's cool. It's the biggest crowd I ever play in front of.
Right. Yeah. Penn State gets to feel good because they had to wipe the floor with some nerds from the you know the first state.
Right.
And Delaware gets to play in a cool stadium. You know.
It's another positive for last year too. I think we doubled our final size, which was interesting. I thought, I was scared that we weren't going to find the numbers, because all of our people, like all of our alumni and all the people that we're all East Coast people, right? So where
Indies
were they
much
going
further drive, right, than Rochester,
right? So way different thing, right? And DCI.
I think they had a routine, you know.
Like when you
every Labor Day, you go down to Rochester and you see
change the weekend too. Like Labor Day is a weekend, so it's a holiday.
Pretty much everyone's got a 3-day weekend, you know.
Exactly, you know, which is why it was always Labor Day for us, because it was just the only time that we could fit in long weekends, and everybody could
multiple competitions, right?
So, you know, I was really worried about that, but you know, I think we had like 1,000 people maybe at finals, probably less than that in 23, and then I think the number was like close to 2,000 at finals last year, which is
funny because
huge number for us.
Yeah,
you know?
It's funny because it's objectively more people than we've had at finals before, but also at first glance looks like so much fewer because the stadium is so giant.
Yeah,
we're like, oh god, no one's here. To keep some perspective, it's a much bigger stadium than Rochester. Right. Still a good amount of people.
Yeah, great crowd reaction, and it was really fun to see people who had never seen it before. You'd never seen us or any of the other DCI All Age groups. So, so that's good, man. And then I don't know. There's a couple people who watch the show. Thank you, by the way, for watching the show. If you're still hanging out, a couple of people who watch the show, I don't want to say they're not knowledgeable, but they're curious about what's going to happen. Right? I know there was a lot of stress about, this is the end of DCI or the DCA. Like, you know, these groups aren't going to exist anymore. And I have no fears of it anymore. I remember just talking to Jim about this last year, right? Because he came back last year. He's one of our Hall of Famers, and he's an old friend of mine. And like, he's got 20 or 25 or whatever. He's got a million seasons.
Insane.
And he's like, I wasn't planning on coming back this year. He's like, but I'm worried that the core won't exist after this year, because DCI is going to it's just not going to work, right? And totally the opposite. It's just totally the opposite.
I think by now,
our membership day last year was the biggest it had ever been.
Yeah,
ever in the history of the organization, and we're a pretty storied organization that has a lot of draw and pull in our circuit, and we still had more people last year because we were in DCI group now.
Yeah, just stick that DCI label on there.
Yeah, I mean, we have how many people fly in? We had at least two people.
The fact that we have any is insane.
Yeah, we have two people that fly in every weekend and then moved out here in the summertime, got some summer jobs, and then, you know, just hung out with the court and lived with a couple of people that were competing. And, you know, we figured it out for those people.
Yeah.
I know one of the coolest things is Cabs has an international people that they come in.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
For like 20, 30 years. They have a joint like partnership, I guess, or like connection with the Yokohama Inspires.
That's cool.
They are the Caballeros of the Japanese corp, right? So they have a lot of members that come out for the DCA, like the American drum corps experience. And then there's people that put them up for an entire season. They come out and they live with them. Yeah, you can stay here, and and then they compete with the corps, and then they fly back home. It's really, really cool. So there's a lot of international like stuff that happens with us because we're all age and because we can afford those kind of things. There's a lot of kids that come in from other countries for DCI, but it's simpler for them because they just go on tour, right? And then they just live
where
with
am I going to live? I'm going to live where everyone else does, on the bus.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So that's pretty neat for us too, and we've seen a big uptick in some people traveling, and it causes some different logistical concerns and some other things too, but there's people willing to help and do the things that need to get done.
Right. It's always such a community effort anyway.
Always,
right. We already have the basic structure in place, right? Figuring out who's housing where, who's carpooling.
Yeah. I think it has really, again, we have certain corps have certain deals with bigger organizations and everything else too. And the hubbub that I have heard over the last 6 months is that other corps now are starting to make bigger connections with other larger groups that they never would have before in the past.
Yeah.
They're getting, I don't want to say deals, but they're just cooperative connections, where they're like, hey, we're going to give you this stuff to just
strategic
play.
Alliances, if you will.
That's a great way to put it. Strategic alliance. Absolutely. That is making our activity more user-friendly and affordable from the corps' organizational standpoint, but also you're getting a better quality, everything from the membership standpoint. What am I paying for when I go to an organization? Do I get high quality equipment? Am I getting, good quality uniforms? Do I have great practice spaces? Do I have all these things? DCI's label being on that, DCI's insurance being on it, and all those other things are gaining us access to a lot of that stuff. So for those of you out there maybe watching podcasts and like, yeah, it's just good for the activity, and we're kind of concerned again about that. Like, if you don't know what's going on, it's because you're not intimately involved with an organization directly right now. Right? Maybe you were for years and you're like, this is the end of everything. You're getting all rowdy up. Get involved with an organization and ask them how great DCI has been. Every single person will tell you it's been fantastic. You know,
especially people who were in DCA during the last couple of years of it.
The last like 10, 15 years. Yeah. Look at the change.
Honestly, as soon as I heard we were going to DCI, I was like, this is the thing that will save the activity. If we want the all age circuit to keep existing, this is what we absolutely have to do. It's that or make gigantic structural changes within DCA. This is the much easier, much less painless, much less painful option.
And I will say this too, like for everybody out there that says the DCI is dying and drum corps is over and blah, blah, blah. I think this was a very strategic move for DCI for long-term benefits, right? Because DCI makes DCI's organization, they want, we've been saying for years and years and years, all these corps are dying, all these things are going away and everything else too. Well, how do you get more corps? You create more divisions, right? And you get more people involved. DCI
lower the barrier of entry for new corps.
Yes. That's why Sound Sport was created. There's like 60 Sound Sport groups right now. That's how many, I don't even know how many people are in Sound Sport or whatever, like the numbers are or anything, but there's like a ton of them now. And that's just more people paying into the system, being involved in DCI as an organization, coming to Indy, which is good for the city, which means they're going to keep supporting DCI. And now DCA or DCI All Age.
For all the schools that don't want us housing there.
Well, that's a different problem. But,
yeah.
But then you have DCI All Age that comes in and goes, hey, this activity that pretty much ends at 20 years old, 21 years old, there's an extension now. Finally, It's been around forever. It's been around longer than DCI has been around. And now you have not a lucrative section, but now you have something that people can get. Like we talked about Minnesota Brass a few minutes ago. They are coming back. They have a very good indoor group. And they have a very good winds group. They have a very good indoor. When I say indoor, I mean guard and percussion, right? They have all three of the indoor groups, and they do very well with them. They have a very good organization, and they've been around for many, many, many years. They gave up their DCI group and their outdoor drum corps group because it was just too expensive to travel, and there was no market for them where they were on a regular basis. It was basically practice all year just to come out for like 2 shows at finals. And it was, why do that? It was tough, right? Now because All Age is getting better and more, and DCI has them, now there's places for them to go. Look at Atlanta CV is doing the same thing. They're at Crown Beat, and the other Crown show, I think their early Crown show, like they show up with that. There's 8,000 people at that show,
right?
And they get to see a fully formed competitive drum corps.
It's the same. Before we had the DCI label officially, when we got to perform at DCI East in 22 and 23, that was like our biggest recruiting event of the entire year.
Yeah.
Right. We have lots of members and alumni and staff and everything that go to high school competitions, set up the booth and talk to people and do all that stuff. And that's all very necessary groundwork. But like, I think it was outweighed just by the simple fact of getting to perform in front of a large group of people and go, look, we're a real drum corps.
Yeah. And,
right?
and that's great in itself too. But I mean, DCA had been doing that for 20 years before that, you know, like I think 06 or 07 or whatever it was the first time that DCA group had been invited to DCI East, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. I might be off on that. It might be maybe 2010, but whatever it was, it's been a while now that these groups have been going.
Cadets performed a bunch of times.
Yeah, cadets.
We pretty much just didn't do it because
we did it a couple times. We did it a couple times back in the day. I want to say it was 06, but I could be wrong. I had never done it with Reading. I did it with Fusion.
I didn't because that was always our free weekend.
I did it with Cabs in 21. So in the COVID year, I did it with Caballeros. But anyway, like that's been going on there. But same thing. As soon as you put the DCI label on it, all of a sudden they weren't some alumni group. You know, DCA. We don't know what this is. You know,
they're in the lineup.
Oh,
right?
They're a DCI group. Oh, DCI. Like, you know, it just
and
gives
there's just
validity.
More opportunities for that. Right?
Yeah, it just gives validity for that, which is crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about downsides. That is a downside. We lost DCI East. Got super sad.
Yeah,
because
we don't get to see I guess. Yeah. Well, now I get to spend $200 on a freaking ticket to
right, there's that too.
To see DCI finals. But yeah, like back in the day, we used to have our one off weekend was always on DCI final. Sorry, either DCI East or the few times that we performed there was on DCI finals. Although it's much harder to get out there, and that's much more of a commitment. But that was our time to see other drum corps. Right? That was our time to see.
Right.
I have this is just a note that I wanted to mention.
Okay. I love side notes.
Throughout the whole season, because we talked about how we lost 3 weeks of the competitive season, right? You know how every weekend, they'd always say, oh, we lost 3 weeks. We lost 3 weekends. You know it's not true, right?
Yeah, right.
We lost 2 weekends.
Right.
Because we took away the free weekend.
That's very true.
So we only lost
two
weekends.
Yeah.
It's a third less than what we kept saying.
Yeah, but I mean
mathematically.
But see, the weekend but yes and no, because the year before that, 2 years before that, 22 and 23, we went to East.
But then we still had an off weekend though in finals.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's when we moved the off weekend too. You went to Troopers in 23, so you probably don't think of that as an off weekend, but that was the off weekend, right?
I forgot about that. You're right.
Right.
So so we lost 2 weeks. You know,
really, we only lost 2 weeks.
Yeah. I know.
That's still time lost. But I'm always like, I remember thinking that in the middle of the season. I was like, wait a second.
I remember them going like, guys, we lost 2 weeks at the end of the season, so we're going to add 5 weeks into the beginning of the season, and we're going to go outside in February. And I'm like, Jesus,
we're out there in the cold just suffering. We're like, I love this activity.
I'm glad I got 8 dots to learn today. Woo! Yeah. It was so mad.
Well, we were hit with like. It was the combo of like we tried to push it back earlier to try and make up for the 3 weeks, but then we just happened to it was like raining for like 3 or 4 weeks in a row.
It was like raining for 3 months straight. I swear to God, last year.
It was awful. It was like 40 or 50 degree weather.
And the rain.
It's like the most miserable I've ever been at drum corps.
Yeah, it's hands down probably the most miserable, except for maybe March. It was March of 22 when I had to do ground rolls in the mud.
Well, again, very similar. Like you're out in the weather and you're like, what are we doing?
Why am I here? We were just happened to be outside just doing body for whatever reason. Anyway, but
that got cut. We didn't even have to do ground rolls in this show.
I know.
Sure.
No, we did not. I was so angry. But anyway,
let's go home early that day at least.
Yes, that's true. We did.
Yeah.
So to kind of, I guess maybe rehash all of this.
Get our summary, our conclusion paragraph going.
Well, before we conclude, let me do one more thing.
Rehash. What are you hashing?
I don't want to rehash anything.
Away.
I want to talk about what I'm excited for 2025.
Yeah.
Right. Because I don't think we really sort of talked about. We talked about prelims.
Talked about a little bit, right? The new structure of finals. Yeah.
I am excited to see how many people come to finals this year. Last year was the first time we were there, right?
Our finals
specifically, DCI All Age finals. Was the first time we were there. So now that there's been a whole nother year of production, I mean, DCI posts out like our little video
all the time,
constantly, right? So people were like, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on?"
And I think that's helped by the fact that I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people at DCI are seeing what our brand new media team is doing a great job of advertising, and they're like, shoot, I like this energy. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Those, you feed each other's hands 100%, right? So
yeah,
I'm very excited to see what the numbers look like, to see if it grows, right?
Yeah.
Because I will tell you this, is that last year, and I know this for a fact because I'm in all the freaking groups, everybody was pissed because they thought they were getting 50-yard.
So many people.
50-yard line tickets for DCI finals for $50 3 weeks before championships. Like, come on, guys.
Randy Bells, you're like, oh, that's a steal.
Yeah.
I did almost do that.
Yeah, I was like, $50. This is pretty cheap.
Yeah, exactly. I went online because I wanted to buy tickets because I wanted to get good seats. Because if we were to talk about the bad for a second.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things that had its ups and downs and some growing pains was the logistics. We showed up at DCI finals and they were like, well, we get access to DCI finals, which was really cool, right? Our
Super
membership
cool.
badges,
Yeah,
we
just
get to go
walk
in.
right in. Yeah, free there.
However, we were told as a core that we'd have a place to sit.
Yeah.
And I almost guarantee it that what happened is that someone in DCI told us that would be the case.
Yeah.
And then when our admin asked and was like, hey, where do our members sit? They went, and just like brought up like
GA section.
brought up the Excel spreadsheet and saw a section that had mostly empty seats and went, sit here, I guess.
Yeah, right.
And then we had a seat hop the whole time.
Yeah.
That was a little bit of a pain. But either way, I wanted to buy actual finals tickets because I was like, I want to actually see
finals.
Finals.
Yeah.
Right?
I was very fortunate. One of my longtime friends. Well, we marched with Julian. His dad buys 4 tickets every year, and he had 2 that he didn't. Like, he was like, yeah. I
never got to spare one of those.
Listen, that's why I got them for Steven and I last year. I was like, we sat.
When Steven's marching DCI.
Yeah, we're in. Well, I'll be on tour with him.
Well, then let me give me his number. And
that's true. Yeah, I'll get you seats. But yeah, so like, I thought that was. I'm really excited to kind of see what finals looks like. I'm interested to see what prelims looks like.
I was about to say that one too, because
our prelims back in the day, nobody comes to that shit. Nobody goes. It's just judges and us.
And we did confirm. I was talking to some friends earlier. There's some confusion. There is the fine text that says if you buy a ticket to DCI semifinals, you do get a ticket to DCI All Age Division Championships that same morning, included with it.
Interesting.
Right? We found the text that included that.
So that makes way more sense. So if it says included in it, probably what it means is you get a ticket, you get a seat wherever you can find a seat, right? And then they're going to give you another ticket, a separate ticket for free, basically, to kind of hone it back in.
That's how the specifics of it work.
Right, because that was a big argument, right? It was a lot of people said, well, why don't we just have one ticket for all of finals? Because nobody's going to show up at 9 o'clock in the morning for some of the early open and A class course.
And also, like,
and sit on the 50 when I bought tickets to see DCI World Finals. At 9 o'clock at night.
Like if the best ticket that I can get is in the 600s, like, and for me, because I'm not part of the elitist Friends of DCI group, it's exclusionary. But no, like, for really, if I bought a 600s ticket, that's fine for DCI, world class. Yeah. I would not want to be sitting there for a DCI All Age.
Exactly.
Right. I would want to be sitting. So it makes much more sense to give him 2 seats for it. Right.
So that's pretty interesting. So the same conversation then. If you are coming out and you're going to see semis, come out to prelims and see it for free, basically, because you're buying semis tickets anyway. Yeah. Right. And then come see the division open world class finals, or whatever you want to call them.
Or do you do something like see our finals or our division finals prelims morning, then just go to lots for semifinals and then see all the shows finals because you're going to be there anyway. Right. So do something like that. Consider your options. If you want to see some other drum corps and what the old heads are doing.
Yeah. So one of the other negatives that the one thing I forgot to say about last year, and I'm curious to see what the change is. So this is something I'm looking forward to as far as the change is concerned. What are they going to do about? I guess it would be now our finals and Sound Sport finals. They're on the same day. They're at the exact same time, right across the street, and Sound Sport is free. Right.
I know how that worked.
So that was a big concern last year. I think that's one of the reasons why
because that feels like that feels inherently like you have to make the choice, right?
Yeah, you have to make You have to make
ideally
a choice.
we want to be propping up all the groups the same amount.
I don't know what the right answer to that is, because I think it's important that the Sound Sport group gets their share of everything too. Their thing is already free, right? Which is probably why they're doing the prelims thing for everybody too. They're kind of making it free for other people buying tickets.
Basically free, right?
Yeah,
Complimentary.
I mean, it's complimentary, free, same thing. Our finals are a price to pay too, but you know, why would you pay to go see our finals when you could go see the Sound Sport Group for free, right?
In a lot of people's minds, right? In a lot of similar ways, you know, comparable set of performances.
Yeah,
or something.
I mean, it's a totally different thing, right? It's like going to see indoor percussion versus indoor.
Yeah, right. But
like,
sure, for a lot of people, it's like, yeah, well, some,
and
whatever.
In the past, it was a great thing because it gave people who before 6 o'clock, before DCI world class finals were going on, it gave you something to do to get to the event center, the area for early in the day. Go see those, the Sound Sport groups perform. It's all free. Spend money. Buy stuff, right? Because all that stuff was open, and then it's all about commerce always. And then go and see the finals. So it gave the holiday, the person who was there on a weekend, like on a vacation. This is what they do for their annual vacation. It gave you something to do all day, right? Now we're in there too, so now there's a lot of things to do, right? So how do you decide what you're going to do with your day, right? I'm very curious to see if they make changes to that, if there's an alteration to that, if they're going to support us versus them, like what is DCI going to? Does DCI move that back a day, right? And put, the Sound Sports finals the day before rather than the same day of finals. That way they can promote us for finals. Like what does it end up converting into?
Yeah,
very curious. Right. I'm very curious.
I'd be curious to see that. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more restructuring, try more stuff, right? Try more ideas, talk about what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. So so I'm curious to see what you guys out there think. Maybe you heard something new. Maybe you found something that you didn't know about what was going on. To see if you appreciated our take on it. We're in the battlefield, so to speak. We're on the front lines,
trenches, right?
Yeah, we're in the front lines, going through it and dealing with it. And our experience has been nothing but positive. It's had its
overwhelmingly.
Yeah. I would say this: any negatives that I experienced had nothing to do with DCI.
Yeah, right.
Finals morning practice.
Overall,
there was because it's all new. I think there was just a heightened sense of,
and there were growing pains, and
that's really nobody's fault.
Yeah, and there was also just like, anytime you have to figure out a large set of logistics for the first time, there's going to be stuff where it just doesn't work perfectly,
and there's going to be things where people you just gonna have to go, well, I guess this is what I'm doing today, right? And then try not to be angry about it all day and just go, look, this is just what it is.
Exactly.
We're just gonna
pretty angry about it.
Yeah, I know you were. It was pretty funny. I think I was the one person, not the one person. I was the one person who I thought would have been angry. Like if I was somebody outside of my own brain watching everybody that I knew, I would go. I would have pegged me to be the most angry last year. And
do you think maybe because everyone else was so angry, it kind of
that is exactly why it was.
You were like, all right.
Yep. Because I would be the first person to kind of go, and like, because I just like to him and haw, and I don't actually mean it. And I think it keeps everybody else in the good place of going, hey, it's okay, man. Like, let's think about this before we get.
I think you have a good radar of being like, when other people are being angry, being like, okay, what if I didn't get angry?
I had to be the opposite. Right? I was like, guys, it's going to be okay. Like, we're going to figure this out and it's going to be fine. I know you're so mad. So mad.
Again, that was a lot.
I was internally angry, but I just wasn't showing it on the outside. Yeah. But and ultimately at the end of the day, like I will say this is I felt really good going into finals physically.
Did you?
I did.
Not.
Yeah.
Felt terrible.
That seems to be a thing for you.
Yeah. I don't know what
finals is really rough for you.
Fine. It was just
so anyway. But hopefully like this year it's going to be different. We'll have some more cool experiences and everything.
Yeah, exactly. We'll hammer out the details, right? I think it'll get better.
If you're part of groups, DCI All Age groups, and you're watching the podcast, and a lot of you guys do out there, I'd love to hear your take on finals and kind of what your feeling is.
What are you excited for?
Yeah, what was your uptick in membership maybe a little bit, and kind of all those other things too. Like make sure you drop it in the comments and share us around. Always share us around and get other people involved. And if you're out there, like just drop us a line, say hello.
Yeah, right. If you're not subscribed,
oh my God,
already, right?
If you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Knock it off.
Leave us a like, leave us a comment, even if it's just nothing, right? Just love hearing from you.
Let us mess up your algorithms.
Yeah, right. Send us around, leave us playing in the background for 10 hours.
Yeah,
right?
just run us up. We're good. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah. Anything else we got?
I think that's it, man. I'm excited.
Covered, yeah. Let us know. Yeah, if you have any ideas for shows or anything like that, right? Let us know. But we'll catch you later.
Yeah.
Off cycle.